This is billionaire Bryan Johnson, and he says that his $2 million per year anti-aging project called The Blueprint has reversed his biological age. Now, in this previous video, we talked about how Ray Kurzweil thinks that aging is something that will be solved by artificial intelligence by the year 2030. But considering that Bryan Johnson actually sold his company to PayPal for a cool $800 million, he gets access to a level of time, money, and connections of anti-aging that us mere mortals could only dream of. And because of this advantage, the start to his infinite aging process is probably going to start a few years before the rest of us. And I like Johnson's approach because it's rooted in science and technology, and he's investing heavily in his own research to make this future possible. So what exactly do these privileges afford him? And what is he doing to live forever today? Well, that's what we're gonna look into in this video. And let's start by talking about senolytic drugs. Johnson is deeply invested in understanding and potentially reversing the aging process, particularly through the lens of senolytics. Now, no surprise if you haven't heard that word before. It's the field of science that's dedicated to senescent cells. And what are senescent cells? Well, those are the cells that have lost their ability to divide properly. Now, a few aren't a big deal, but as more and more of the cells inside your body lose this property, that's part of the aging process. They collectively contribute to age-related diseases, such as cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. Now, to counteract the effect of these cells, his personal researchers and the field at large are pursuing various strategies. Senolytic drugs, for instance, selectively target these defunct cells, hopefully eliminating them without affecting any of the healthy ones they're surrounded by. And experiments with mice have shown promising results. Mice treated with these drugs actually exhibit fewer senescent cells, and they exhibit improved health metrics, like reduced weight and better cardiovascular health. Another promising technique involves cellular reprogramming, and this is where the senescent cells are actually fixed. They're reconfigured. The actual DNA that makes them broken is repaired. That blows my mind, but preliminary studies on mice have actually shown this is possible too. And Bryan Johnson is really keen on trying to figure out what it is that worked in these mouse models and seeing how we can bring it over to human trials. And even though I'm really excited for that, I have to keep in mind that this is the early days of this kind of technology. Even with Bryan's unlimited bank account, it's not going to happen overnight. Now, I wonder if he could go somewhere and get it done sort of under the table, or, you know, like not totally something everybody could do. And if he is, how that works out will be really fascinating. But it's a promising line of research. Just don't think this is going to be available to me or you anytime soon. Now, another place where anti-aging is looking really promising is working with stem cells. And there is some significant investments going into this, what they call regenerative field of science. Stem cells possess the unique ability to turn into any other type of cell in the body. And from there, it opens up the door to regenerating entire organs or the kind of tissue that decays. And Bryan Johnson has already explored how this is possible in his own body. And there are some quantitative measures, but also more mentally, he explains that he just feels better where the injections have been made. Now, regenerative medicine as a whole has all sorts of potential. Replacing damaged or diseased cells, full tissues, organs, that will be amazing. And through Bryan Johnson's significant investments in the field, he plans to increase the progress time and try to make this all happen sooner rather than later. And the cool thing is there's animal trials in mice where they've actually generated entire hearts and replaced them. Other animal studies have been able to restore mobility in paralyzed animals through spinal cord repairs. But despite the enthusiastic investments that he's been making, I have heard Bryan Johnson remain grounded in his thoughts of how long this might take, understanding that this kind of development to go from mouse to human might take years, maybe even decades to accomplish. Okay, so the idea of this, which is technically called a genomically customized neuroprosthetic pill, and how they would interface with human intelligence tools. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but basically it's a pill that changes your brain. And I know it sounds like it's in the realm of science fiction, but the pill is tailor-made based on your genetics to affect your head. Bryan Johnson imagines this kind of pill as a way for humans to start to connect their brains to robots. And Bryan Johnson is deeply invested in creating these pills, believing in their long-term potential to completely revolutionize the concept of aging, eliminate it, basically. So what his researchers are doing is they're working on cutting-edge genetic engineering techniques. I imagine something like that Jurassic egg breeding facility or something, but instead of using it to create super dangerous and super awesome velociraptors, their focus is on analyzing individual genetic sequences in all of our bodies, personalized for each person, to enhance the cognitive functions and the overall brain health in the individual. Think about this. You take a pill, and I don't know what it is, like it's not nanotech, but somehow what it is gets digested and migrates its way up to your brain. And then once there, it's DNA in some kind of a little injection system, probably something like a virus, and it just pierces the cells of the neurons in your brain, injects the genetic material. But the point is, the genetic material is customized via gene editing, so it does something specific once it's in these brain cells. And that specific thing might be repairing your brain cells so they're always young and healthy, or it might improve cognition. Somehow, maybe the brain cells make certain proteins that make them just function better, and then that's what it does. Or it delays somehow natural damage. Maybe that's protein buildup that's like really bad and associated with Alzheimer's, or maybe that's the way telomeres get shorter, or some other kind of thing that actually they haven't figured out yet, but that's part of the aging process for a brain neuron. Yeah, maybe in a decade or two, you just take a pill and your brain gets healthier and younger. In the long run, this is something to start thinking about. And as artificial intelligence becomes better at figuring out what those DNA sequences are going to be, and as we get better at cutting these things with CRISPR-Cas9, then Johnson might come up with something that will make him incredibly rich and live forever. So now let's talk about the artificial intelligence component of his blueprint plan, because AI is something I talk about all the time on this channel, and it's something he's heavily invested in also. Bryan Johnson sees AI helping in multiple ways, of course with the gene editing that we talked about, but also in the more robotic sense, as exoskeletons for our body, as advanced prosthetics, and basically the first step towards being a cyborg. He's definitely touched on the long-term idea of uploading human consciousness and letting go of this meat body where you can just live digitally forever. Occasion. Most of the time, it seems like he's always grounded in how do I just make this body live longer. But he also is making some investments in artificial intelligence in terms of education, retraining programs to keep the workforce ready so that when we all do live this long, we have a society that sustains that better. And most importantly, at a personal level, he uses not true AI, but a very intense algorithm. The blueprint plan is about letting go of your human intuitions, not letting your emotions make your decisions, and letting a computer make the decisions that will let you live the longest. So machine learning in that sense is a way for him to magnify what the computer's decisions make in his behalf. Diet, what to eat. Machines tell him. How to optimize sleep, machines give him that information too. And these algorithms assess vast amount of data that he generates. Every kind of wearable and measurable test that he can get his hands on, he gives it to the machines. He's also interested in the way these advanced machine learning algorithms could look at his personal data in comparison to the average or across large data sets. So when he gets some medical imaging done, he can measure how does this look compared to the average healthy person versus the average unhealthy person versus the average person in our population with my background, etc. From there, the machines might be able to give him more insights into how to extend longevity or potentially diagnose a disease that normally a normal doctor wouldn't have seen enough evidence for yet. So look, Bryan Johnson's plans for immortality, it's not just a pipe dream in my opinion. As these kind of things compound in exponentials, it might feel like nothing's happening for a long time until it just really does get solved. And by taking these concrete steps to both take action the way that the machines say to, and to make the investments in the research and start that iterative process, I think is probably going to work out well for him. Senolytics, stem cells, artificial intelligence, the gene pill that changes your brain, they're all a step in a direction that helps all of society in the long run. And if permanent life extension becomes a reality, maybe you should also be investing in birthday candles, because we're going to need a lot of them.